I come from a very average middle American family, and the average middle American, average middle class American out there, they don't rise every day and think about January 6th. They think about the prices at the grocery store. They think about the price of gas. They think about the invasion at our southern border. They think about all the endless wars that we've now been thrust into, but they don't wake up and think about January 6th. So I think that they probably much more think about the future of their country, and they look at Donald Trump as somebody who is a resilient warrior ready to lead us into that future and get America back on track.
Let's speak now to Tomi Lahren, host of OutKick's Tomi Lahren is Fearless, who joins us on the evening edition. Good evening to you.
Thank you so much for having me and for covering, obviously, what is a huge and tragic event in the U.S. Thank God our former president was saved, but we can't forget that one of his supporters that just simply wanted to attend a political rally is now dead, and that family is without a father. So it's really important that we also shine a light on that and the loss that our country is feeling, not only from an assassination attempt on a former president, but also just an innocent American that was killed on that day.
Yeah, and look, it's important for us to try and digest the days in this aftermath. We know that Donald Trump says he's changed his speech for the Republican National Convention this week to call for unity. Many thought he might take the opportunity to go on the offensive, to talk about how democracy is under threat, to talk about how important it is that he gets his message out there to the American people. And instead, he's calling for unity. What do you make of that, Tomi?
I think anytime you're within centimeters of your life, obviously that's going to be a life-changing event. But I think when you hear Donald Trump's going to have a tone of unity, I've always heard a tone of unity from this president. Yes, he's attacked policies, he's attacked elected officials based on their policies and those that have gone after him by weaponizing the judicial system and lawfare against him. But he's never talked about the other side of the aisle and the voters on the Democrat side. He's always embraced everybody and said, I want to make America great again for all of you. I want all Americans to prosper in this country, regardless of who you voted for. So I think maybe when we talk about a tone of unity, maybe just a tone of gratefulness, of resiliency. That's what I expect to hear from him. But I also expected that from the get-go before this horrible event on Saturday. I expected him to have a speech at the convention that reminded not only the U.S., but the world that he wants a stronger America. And I think that's always been his goal. Maybe just now a toned down type of speech when it comes to the way that he's going to speak. But I think that the message was always going to be one of making America great again for everybody.
Yeah, and I guess it depends how he conveys that. He has made dramatic changes to it, so we have to assume that it maybe didn't have the same unity focus that this one did, and perhaps touched on it, but went in on other key issues instead. Would this have been Trump's strategy, or would that have been the strategy of his team? We're also hearing that his team have been reaching out to convention speakers, asking them to avoid focusing on the shooting or blaming the left for it, and instead centering their attention on the fundamentals of the campaign. He wants to get back to his campaign messages.
I think that the president's team, especially this go around, is a return to form as his election team was ahead of the 2016 election. And I'm happy to hear that strategically. And also as a Trump supporter, I like the way that they've been running this campaign. I like the way that Donald Trump has been conducting himself. Obviously, he talks about the issues and he talks about a nation that's in decline and how he wants to save it. But I've heard from him in the last couple of months that he has a really inspirational message. He has an aspirational message. He's looking towards the future. And when the other side of the aisle says that he's focused on himself, I think him and his team coming out of this convention and saying that he doesn't want to focus on himself and he doesn't want to focus on this assassination attempt and rather wants to focus on the American people and the country, I think that's exactly the right chord to strike here. I'm happy to hear that that's going to be the tone that they take. And I'm also very excited to see who he's going to choose as his vice president. And if what happened on Saturday maybe impacted that decision, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it's obviously more important than ever that we bring this country together, and the Republican Party is more unified than ever. We can't say the same about the Democrat Party, but going into the RNC, I think that everybody is very pro-Trump, pro-unity, pro-America, and pro-Make America Great Again.
Yeah, I mean, look, some people may struggle with that pro-unity message because they still haven't forgiven him over the Jan 6 attacks. They perceive Donald Trump as having incited a riot there and having called on his MAGA supporters to launch an attack on the Capitol. That is, still in a lot of people's minds. And I'm not saying that those are necessarily Democrat voters. I'm talking about the people who are undecided, who will be listening carefully to Donald Trump this week and his call for unity. And I'm sure they will like that, but they may still struggle to get over the juxtaposition of someone who witnessed and didn't intervene early enough, in their opinion, in what happened on Jan 6th and the message he's trying to put out this week.
Yeah, I push back against that. I think that the only people that are hyper fixated all these years later on January 6th are the people that are in the left-wing media. I think they are the ones that are obsessed with January 6th. I think that they want every day to be January 7th. And I think that that's really all they want to talk about because their party doesn't have a message or a plan for the future of America. So that's what they have to continue to harp on. I would hope after the events of Saturday that the continuous harping on January 6th has dissipated. I hope that we're ready to move forward. And I'll tell you this, I come from a very average middle American family, and the average middle American, average middle class American out there, they don't rise every day and think about January 6th. They think about the prices at the grocery store. They think about the price of gas. They think about the invasion at our southern border. They think about all the endless wars that we've now been thrust into, but they don't wake up and think about January 6th. So I think that they probably much more think about the future of their country, and they look at Donald Trump as somebody who is a resilient warrior ready to lead us into that future and get America back on track. So I think it's much more the left-wing media that's focused on January 6th. I think most Americans have left that in the past and are ready to move on.
Look, his team say he's fine, but still Donald Trump has survived an assault on his life by fluke, however you want to interpret it, and you have to tell me how you interpret it. How do you think, first of all, Donald Trump is doing? You've spoken to him on several occasions. You know him better than I do, better than many of our listeners do. How do you really think he's doing?
I think exactly what you saw the moment that he got up from that stage and shook his fist in the air in defiance and in patriotism. I mean, what you see is what you get with Donald Trump. There isn't somebody who is one way in front of people and one way behind closed doors. He is the most authentic, genuine person, love him or hate him, that you'll likely ever meet, especially in politics. So I think now he's more invigorated than ever and he's more inspired than ever to put this
But I
country on
just
a better
wonder if he's
path.
going to be shaken at all, Tommy, because that is a natural human reaction. And I actually think Donald Trump saying, yes, I am a bit shaken. Yes, of course, this affected me, helps us to understand him more as a real person.
Yeah, he's a human being. I don't think anybody could get up from an event like that and not really take a survey of your life and a reflection of your life. But I think for him, he's somebody that's constantly looking forward. And I think that he's obviously going to have it in the back of his mind. And so are his supporters, and so are convention goers, and so are Democrat politicians on the other side of the aisle. I mean, it was a colossal failure of security. It's hard not to think about that. But I do think that Donald Trump is incredibly forward looking. And as much as he might have been shocked and shaken up, I think you saw him rise from the stage that day with his fist in the air. I think you see him choosing not to delay an appearance at the convention, saying that he's going to move forward. He's not going to let anything backtrack or sidetrack him. I think that shows the incredible laser focus this man has on the goal in the days ahead.
Yeah.
And for me as an American and a Trump supporter, that makes me feel invigorated to see.
Okay. Again, I'm thinking about these undecided voters who Donald Trump really would like to appeal to. We've seen a shift in the polls towards him. We've got a Times YouGov poll tonight that says 6 out of 7 swing states Trump is ahead, and he'll be looking to bed that in further, and that'll come via the undecided voters. How are they to interpret the call by Donald Trump to fight, fight, fight? He raised his fist in the air. He just had an assassination attempt on his life, and he wanted to face the cameras. He didn't want to be taken away by his Secret Service agents, and he said, fight, fight, fight. How are we to interpret that?
Well, I'll tell you how most Americans, most patriotic Americans interpreted that as somebody who is a warrior and a patriot and who can literally be within millimeters of his life and still wants to stand up and reassure his supporters that came there to see him that he is okay. And I think it was much more about the crowd and the audience there who were also fearing for their life at that point. He wanted to show them, listen, it's going to be okay. I'm okay. Be strong. Don't panic. We are strong. We are patriots. We are Americans. So So for those that want to sit there and say that he meant to fight one another or to fight other people, what he meant is fight. You fight for this country, you fight for integrity, you fight for patriotism. You are strong, you are tenacious, you are resilient. That's what he meant, in my opinion,
Okay.
by his hand gesture there.
Very quickly, in one name, who is your pick, your preferred pick for VP, Tomi?
Well, this name has, long since been out of the conversation, but I would love to see a Governor Ron DeSantis be the VP pick. I don't think that that's going to happen, but that's what I would like to see. I do think now with some of the information that we're getting, it might be a Senator J.D. Vance. I think he's got all good choices on the table, and we're all anxiously awaiting who that person's going to be.
All right. Well, look, thank you so much for speaking to us tonight. Really appreciate it. Tomi Lahren there, who is host of OutKick's Tomi Lahren is Fearless. Thank you for joining us on Times Radio.